Hello, Year 7. How are you? I hope you're well. Today, you're going to do some descriptive writing. So well done for all the efforts that you made with your little writing assessment you've done on Timothy Winters. I know that everybody tried really hard with that. So we're going to have a bit of a break from analysing today and do some descriptive creative writing because I know everybody really enjoys that. And we're going to go back to Flannan Isle. Well, we're going to go back to the island and think the idea of the lighthouse anyway is inspiration for our writing. So I've got my picture of my lighthouse here. This one looks fairly beachy and summery, but actually what we're going to do today is we're going to base our writing on this picture that I've got on the top of the screen up there, which is rather a stormy situation and the lighthouse shining out over that. And the objective really is to improve our creative writing skills and to try and use all of the poetic techniques that we've seen the poems using over the past couple of months. So we're going to try and use similes, metaphors, personification, and some sounds as well, some alliteration, onomatopoeia, and maybe even a semantic field if you're feeling very clever. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this picture, and the first thing is that if you want to print the picture off and stick that in the middle of a double page, we're going to brainstorm lots of ideas like that. But if you don't, it doesn't really matter. You can just sketch yourself a picture, a bit like me, can't be worse than mine. All you need to do is just have a vague idea where the things are on the picture, like we've got the waves here, the lighthouse, the light beam, and some clouds, and then that can help you plan. So don't worry if you can't print it out. It really doesn't matter as long as you can keep having a look at the picture and you've got lots of imagination. That is the main thing. Okay, so pause the video and either stick your picture in or draw your little picture in the middle of a double page. Remember, you're going to need all the room. Then do that now. Right, so whilst we're doing this creative writing, we're going to use the boxing off method, which is we have used before back in the first term when you wrote about the telltale heart, but we're going to draw boxes onto this and describe what we think we see in the box or what might be in the box. So these are the boxes that I suggest that you draw. So one around the lighthouse, one around the sea, one to do with the light beam, one in the sky, and one the rays of sunshine over there in the far distance. Now that's probably going to be the extension section if you get to that. But so you've got 5 boxes there, which will make 5 paragraphs of descriptive writing. Some will be longer than others, but you may choose not to do the rays of sunlight at the end. So pause your video and do those boxes now. Right, so for each part of the picture, if you remember, what we're going to do is we're going to brainstorm some ideas of words and phrases that we can use. So starting with the lighthouse, you might have to draw a long line here if you've got a double page available, and think about a section where you're going to now, in a minute, pause the video and think about the adjectives you can use to describe the lighthouse, and then think about the verbs for how it stands. Can you think of a simile, okay, that it's standing as tall as something, or it looks like this? Can you think of personification? Can you think of any way of making it seem like a living thing? And to stretch yourself down at the bottom, maybe you can think of a metaphor. If you can't think of a metaphor, don't worry, but you certainly want to think of some adjectives and verbs, maybe a simile. So pause the video and spend a couple of minutes trying to think about those things now. Right, so if you are stuck, I've put some ideas down here now that you can add to your own brainstorm. So for adjectives, I've got tall, proud, majestic. Majestic means like royalty. Verbs, I've got towering, leaning, straining. You might have decided that you want the lighthouse to be somehow struggling to stay upright or falling apart. It might be crumbling, it might be bending. A simile I've got is like a statue of rock. Actually, I'm going to need to move myself here, aren't I? Let's put myself over here. And like a giant. And the personification, words to use to make it sound like the lighthouse is somehow alive. I've got proud, defiant. Defiant means you won't do what you're told. Brave. And I've got the expression, it comforts and it guides. So you've hopefully got your own ideas. I'd pause the video now and just write down 1 or 2 from there that you would like to borrow as well. Okay, now we're going to do the same for the sea. So have a look at the sea. It's pretty stormy. What adjectives could you use to describe it? What verbs might you use to show how it's moving? Can you think of a simile? And can you think of any words which might make the seas seem alive and threatening? Okay, so pause the video now and do your brainstorm for the sea. So here are some ideas that you can use. You don't need to copy all of them down because hopefully you've got some of your own. But if you struggled with a little bit with one of the sections, like maybe the verbs or personification, then you can pause the video now and put them down. So I've just used the simile like an attacking army. So to think about the waves kind of beating against the lighthouse, using that personification will make it all sound much stronger. And the words I've got are like attacking, angry, menacing. Okay, next section, same thing, the stormy sky. So up in the sky, you've got the clouds, you've got the sky. So in the verbs, you might want to put some colours, the adjectives, sorry, not the verb. Colours will go in the adjectives. What about the verbs? How are the clouds moving? Is the rain doing anything? What might you compare the clouds to with a simile? So pause the video and see what ideas you can brainstorm for the sky. Here are some ideas if you're a little bit stuck. Again, try to make sure you've got some of your own, but you can have these as well. So pause and steal any of these words or phrases that you think will be useful. And finally, the lighthouse as beam or the sunlight. You could do one or the other or both, but I thought this was quite striking, the way that the light from the lighthouse sort of, really had a strong sort of projection across the sea there. So what can you say about the light? You might describe the light, you might describe what the light is doing, what that light here be like, what other light might it be like. And if you want to do the rays of sunlight as well as a sort of hopeful kind of message in the future or something, the good that's coming, or perhaps the sun that's being chased away, then you could put some ideas down there. So pause the video for your last bit of brainstorming there. Okay. And I've put some ideas in here. These are some of my ideas. So you might want to just take a couple of these ideas and add them to your own brainstorm before we carry on. So now that you've finished your brainstorm, you should have a great big page full of ideas. You're going to write a description entitled The Lighthouse. So for each box, you need to write at least a couple of sentences. It's not just going to be 5 sentences, one for each box. You need to do a couple of sentences for each section because you've got lots of ideas there that I've given you. And if you're a bit stuck, you can always go back if you didn't write them all down. But you also, if you do that, you're going to include a range of poetic devices. So you're going to have some similes, some personification, and you might try some metaphors in there. We haven't talked about alliteration, but you should try and put that in at some point. Have an example of alliteration by repeating the letters at the beginning or a letter sound within one phrase or sentence. And you might have some words that are onomatopoeia as well. But as you go, you need to think really carefully about punctuation as per usual and spelling. So check as you go along, ask somebody to check with you. When you've written a couple of sentences, read back through it and check you've got capital letters and full stops and the basics. And what I suggest you do is that you start a new paragraph for each section of the picture you're writing about. Now, the other challenge to do is to include some golden sentences. And so I've put some reminders about this down here at the end of the presentation, which you can also just look at attached to the lesson. You can go through at your own pace. Excuse me. I think I'm going to sneeze. Oh, excuse me. It's a bit hay fevery this morning. Okay, so last term, when you were working on your novel, you practiced using the fronted adverbial sentence. So you might recognise this box here from the lesson then. And way back in the autumn, when we did a boxing off of a picture like this to do with the telltale heart, you actually looked at these 3 golden sentences as well, the 2 similes sentence, the 3 adjectives sentence, and the state and repeat sentence, if you can remember. So keep an eye on those, okay? Lots of you should be able to include at least one of those sentences in your writing, and some of you should be able to include quite a few. So that's your extra challenge. So you're going to start on your writing now. If you're really, really stuck and you don't know how to start, then I've put a help sheet here. And really, this is how to start each paragraph. Okay, so you could have the start off with the lighthouse. You could use the simile at the start, and how does it stand? And then you could complete that sentence. Then off you go, write everything you can about the lighthouse. And then I've put, if you're not sure how to start each paragraph, about the sea there, and then about the clouds and the sky, and then the ray of light. So you can use that. You can go through all these slides at your own leisure, not on the video, but on the PowerPoint that's attached, or you can just use the video. But we're really looking forward to some excellent creative writing. You've done a lot of analysis, but I know there's some really good writers out there, and you're going to write an amazing piece about the lighthouse. Well done.